So our question today then is this: how can I be resilient? What are the building blocks of resilience? So g'day, once again, my name is Sam Chan. I'm from Third Space, and I will try to answer this question over the next 20 minutes, followed by some question and answer from you guys. And it's an important question. How can we be resilient? Because right now, stress, anxiety, and depression are at epidemic highs in Australia. Once upon a time, the number one reason to see a GP was for the common cold, but now for the first time ever, the number one reason why we see a GP in Australia is for mental health reasons. Mental health or mental illness is also at disproportionate highs. It's higher in the Western world compared to the rest of the world. And you think, wow, that's amazing, because if you could pick any time to be born right now, it'll be right now in the Western world. We live longer, we own more stuff, we have free Wi-Fi in McDonald's, and yet somehow we're more stressed, more anxious, more depressed than ever before. And also stress, anxiety, and depression are at understandable highs. We just had a global pandemic where mental illness was worse than ever before, but understandably so. And also, work is stressful, home is stressful, and let's face it, life is stressful. So again, our question is this: how can I be resilient? And to answer this, it's good to see mental fitness as a spectrum. It's not binary. You either have it or you don't have it. You're either sick or you're well. In the same way that physical fitness is on a spectrum, mental fitness is also on a spectrum. And in the same way that you can be physically fit and still get injured and still break down, we can still have mental fitness and yet still get hurt, broken, and unwell. But the more full our mental fitness tank, the less likely it is that we will break down. So there'll be two halves to my talk. First half of the talk, I'll look at things that empty our mental fitness tank and make it more likely that we might break down, and things we can do to fill our mental fitness tank. And I'll be answering this from a Christian perspective, using the Christian worldview and the Christian faith as well. So let's begin. What are some things that will empty our mental fitness tank? And here I suggest at least three things. Number one, we live in a culture which is called meritocracy and perfectionism. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, many years ago, I ran in the Sydney Marathon, a 42-kilometre run through the streets of Sydney. And the race started, but then I decided, you know what, I'll quickly go to the toilet. It's early in the race, I can always catch up. But when I came out of the toilets, there was no one around. And that's when I found a race official. And I said, am I coming last? And he saw my race number. He was horrified. He said, you are coming last. You are dead last. There's no one in front of you for miles. And I thought, wow, I'm the guy coming last in the Sydney Marathon. That's not easy to do. There are thousands of runners, but I'm coming last. They should give me a trophy for the guy coming last. But they didn't give me a trophy. And that's because we live in a meritocracy, where we have to earn our trophies. We have to earn our qualifications. We have to earn our job. We have to earn our wealth and possessions. And we're told that we can be anything we want to be, as long as we believe and try hard enough. And so we should be able to make the perfect sourdough. We should have the perfect body. We should have the perfect holiday. We should have the perfect job. We should have the perfect family. In fact, we ourselves should be perfect. And if we're not, well, it's because we didn't try hard enough. We failed. The second thing that empties our mental fitness tank is this: we live in a culture of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And this is why New Year's Eve is so underwhelming, because we're always going from party to party looking for the better party that might be out there. This is Sarah Wilson. She struggles with mental health. She struggles with anxiety, but she's very successful. She was the editor behind Cosmo magazine. She was behind the successful I Quit Sugar campaign, but at the same time, she suffers from stress, anxiety, and mental health issues. And she explains it this way. She says to suffer from anxiety is to be, she says, you know, it's like that dog that you see circling a cushion, always looking for a place to settle down, but never finding it. It's this search. It's this restlessness that we struggle with. And we always have this restlessness ourselves. It's this feeling that out there, somewhere, somehow, something better is going on than what I have in front of me right now. And so we keep looking. And even if we find what we think we're looking for, there's no guarantee of happiness. This is Jill Stark. She's an ABC journalist, and she's written this book, Happy Never After, to describe what happened to her after she wrote her previous book, which became, boom, a success, a bestseller, but it sent her down into a spiral of depression. And apparently this is very common with writers. They spend their lives poured into a book writing project. The book is launched, it's a success, and then they realize there's nothing there. There's nothing there at the top of the mountain. The third thing that empties our mental fitness tank is this. Right now, our lives are maxed out. This is a nose wax kit. Yes, it's a thing now. And I'm thinking, oh, this is one more thing I have to do on top of my busy life, as if my life wasn't maxed out already. As you heard earlier, I have 3 young boys. This is what my week looks like. Monday night is martial arts night. Tuesday night is music lessons. Wednesday, before lockdown, was football training. Thursday was band night. Friday night was youth group. Saturday and Sunday was weekend sport. Our lives are maxed out. And even then, a well-meaning person will say, your kids aren't doing Chinese. They should be learning Chinese. I'm sorry, but they need to do a foreign language. Otherwise, the 2 parts of the brain won't talk to each other and they won't be smart as they can be. And I thought, wow, my life is maxed out. And even then, I feel like I'm not doing enough. When I worked as a junior doctor in a big hospital in Sydney, this is what a mobile phone looked like. It was bigger and heavier than a car battery. It was so big that only one doctor in the department got to take home the mobile phone every night. Only one doctor in the department was contactable. The rest of us, we just went home and we were not contactable. But these days, we're all contactable. We're all on call. We're all working 24 hours a day. And worse than that, we are now working from home. Or as someone said, we are now living at work. Worse than that, both partners now need to work. So we have to juggle the childcare, the school drop off, the childcare pickup, the school pickup. Our lives are maxed out. And even then we feel like we're falling behind and not doing enough. Whew. So what are some things we can do to fill our mental fitness tank? And here I love a story that's in the Bible. And in this story, it's a story about Jesus, where 2 sisters called Mary and Martha invite Jesus to their home for a meal. This is the picture I'm using to imagine what Jesus might look like if he was here today, because we know Jesus was not Anglo, he was not white, he was also a bit cutting edge, countercultural. So maybe this is what Jesus would look like if he was here today. Well, Mary and Martha invite Jesus to their home for a meal, and Martha is stressed, trying to get the food ready, but her sister Mary is just chilled, in the moment, present with Jesus. But this just stresses out Martha all the more. And she says to Jesus, Jesus, do something. Tell my sister to help me. And Jesus says, Martha, 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 your sister Mary has found a better thing. She's present. She's in the moment with me. Well, what are some things we can learn from this story about how we can fill our mental fitness tank? Well, here I suggest at least 4 things. Number 1, we don't have to be perfect. I love the way that children draw, but look at that. Like, why do we like this? I mean, I'm sorry, but that looks nothing like a real human being. But we still say, oh, look at that drawing. It is so beautiful. It's so cute. So I asked my church minister, Andrew Barsley, who used to be a school arts teacher. And I said to him, Andrew, what's going on? How come children can draw like this, but us adults, we can't, even if we try? And Andrew told me children have playfulness when they draw, but us adults, we have replaced it with literalism and perfectionism. We're trying to draw the exact representation of a human being when we draw. We have a culture of perfectionism. This is Will Storr. He's not a Christian. He's a UK writer. He's written this book called Selfie. And in this book, he tries to answer the question, why is stress, anxiety, and depression so high in the Western world disproportionately? And he thinks it's this. He thinks the reason why we're so stressed is in the West, we have this unchallenged mantra that says, I'm perfect and you need to accept me for who I am, which sounds great, but the unintended negative consequence is this. We now have to prove we're perfect to others and to ourselves. It's created a culture of self-perfectionism. And maybe that's Martha running around trying to put on the perfect meal. Instead, in the Christian worldview, Jesus in the Bible flips it around, because this is the Christian worldview. Jesus is perfect, so I don't need to be perfect. So I don't need to prove I'm perfect. So I don't need to pretend I'm perfect. And Jesus accepts me just the way I am. And this is what Mary has discovered in the story. Number 2 is this. Only control what we can control and trust the rest to God. My wife is a great driver, but I'm a horrible passenger because I can't trust her. I'm always thinking, hey, why are you going this way? I would have gone this way. What are you doing in this lane? You need to be in this lane, when I need to relax. She's a great driver. Just control what I can control, put a seatbelt on, play with a visor, and trust her with the rest. You know, in life, we only have 3 choices. No one's in control. This universe is hurtling out of control, and that's a bit stressful. Another choice is I need to control everything, and that's stressful. But we have a third choice. God is in control. Trust him with that, and only control what I need to control, which makes a lot of sense because we can't control most of the major things in life. We can't control what family we got born into. We can't control what country we grew up in. We can't control what school our parents sent us to. We can't control what questions come up in the exams. We can't control the finance world. We can't control our parents' health. And yet these things have more influence in our lives than any other factors. But if we trust God with those, and we trust God with all the other details, we will find a shalom, a peace, and to know that I only need to control what I can control and trust God with the rest. The third thing that fills our mental fitness tank is this. We can practice healthy habits. And here I learned a lot from this episode, and maybe you can take a screenshot and check it out later for yourselves. It's a podcast called Bigger Questions, episode 177 with Dr. Jenny George, and they ask her, well, how can I be mentally fit? And she says, well, there are all these practices that we can do. And if we look at the list, they all make a lot of sense, and both Christians and non-Christians come up intuitively with the same list. But when I look at this list, I think, you know what? This list makes a lot more sense if there is a loving, powerful God behind the universe, because we have a God who programmed a rhythm of rest into his universe. So we sleep. Exercise is important because the physical world is important to God, so much that his son Jesus took on our physical bodies. Mindfulness, being present. That's why God creates a rhythm of Sabbath and rest, so we can be present with God. The outdoors is important because God has programmed beauty into his creation. Giving works because the DNA of this universe is one of grace, where there's a God who was himself generous and a giving God. Thankfulness. Everyone says we need to be thankful, but who are we thankful to? It needs to be more than just a random universe of atoms and molecules. There must be a personal God we can thank. Purpose and meaning. Well, this only makes sense if there's a designer behind the universe. Forgiveness. Well, this can only work if we ourselves are forgiven. Now, society won't forgive us. We won't forgive ourselves. But if there's a loving, powerful God who sent his son Jesus to die for us and live for us, and he forgives us, we too can forgive. And finally, prayer. Everyone says prayer helps. But again, this only works if there's a loving, powerful God that we can pray to. The fourth thing that will fill our mental fitness tank is this. We need to ask ourselves, well, what is my ultimate value? And we all know this trick. When we travel, carry a fake wallet. So when we're robbed, we can hand over what is of no value because we know we have something of value hidden somewhere else. I once lent my car to my brother. He crashed it. First thing I want to ask was, how's my car? But I knew, no, ask my brother, how are you? Because cars come and go, but the ultimate value is my brother. And it's the same with us. If we have Jesus, we will always have something of ultimate value. Jobs will come and go, money will come and go, friends will come and go, our health will come and go, but Jesus will always be with us. If we love, worship, and follow Jesus, the Bible promises he will be in us and we will be in him. We will always be valuable to Jesus and he will always be valuable to us. So our original question today was this: how can I be resilient? What are the building blocks of resilience? And here we've seen 4 things that will fill our mental fitness tank. Now, my boys love playing Minecraft, but did you know there are 2 modes in Minecraft? There's survival mode where, oh, it's crazy. There are killer bees. There are holes you can fall down. You can die in survival mode. But there's also creative mode where you're in the moment, imagining and creating beauty. It's the same with us. There are 2 modes we can live in life. We can live in survival mode, but that will drain our mental fitness tank, or we can live in creative mode. And this is all the more easy if we know there's a loving, powerful God who's behind the universe. He's in control. Jesus is perfect, so I don't need to pretend to be perfect. And I will always have Jesus no matter what, and he is of ultimate value to me. Well, thank you so much for listening to my very short presentation. I'm now going to try to get back to this. I'm going to hand you over to a presentation by Michelle, who's a worker at KPMG Sydney, where she's going to talk about struggles she's had, her mother's struggles with health, but how resilience, especially the resilience that comes from a Christian worldview, has helped them navigate these struggles. Thank you again, and I'll see you in Q&A time.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and I work at KPMG in Sydney. Today I'll be sharing with you an example of how maintaining spiritual health has made a real difference to a person's mental health and resilience. And that person is my mum. My mum has had to deal with a lot of health problems in her life. To name a few, she had hand reconstruction surgery on both hands, a hysterectomy due to excessive bleeding, and most recently was diagnosed with an aggressive form of renal cancer and had her right kidney and ureter removed. And to be hit with problem after problem, many people would think that her mental health would have been adversely impacted. But my mum's mental health remains strong because of her spiritual health and faith, which has built her resilience. I asked her how she maintains her spiritual health, and she said, by praying to God throughout the day. Praying is not something that's formal and rigid. When you're praying to God, it's pretty much like talking to your best friend. You can talk to him about everything, how you're feeling, share your burden, and ask for his help and guidance at any time of the day, so you don't have to worry anymore. She also finds reading psalms and memorizing and singing worship songs really uplifting and encouraging. I also asked her, what is it that makes her so confident in knowing that she can trust God to help her through? Her answer is that God answers her prayers. God has been so good to her, and only good things come from God. And even when bad things happen, she should be thankful as well, because her suffering is for a good purpose. There is a reason behind it, which she believes only God knows, but everything that happens in her life is for a reason. It gives her the opportunity to receive God's comfort and love, which she can then use to help others. It empowers her to care for others as God gives her peace and joy. The most recent example I can share with you is how God helped her with finding out that she had cancer and the quick time frame in which the cancer was able to be removed. She actually didn't have any signs and symptoms of renal problems, and the process was quite interesting. It started when she felt pain in the left side of her backside, which radiated to her knee, so she got a scan for her lower spine, and it was through that spinal scan that they noticed something was wrong with her right kidney. She ended up having a renal scan, which showed that her kidney had expanded to an enormous size and had pushed and displaced some of her organs. And after this discovery, her backside pain miraculously disappeared. She was referred to the best specialist, who was the head of the urology department at the local hospital, who had a very long waiting list. But when Mum called the receptionist on a Friday, to her surprise, there was a cancellation on that very morning for Monday the week after. So instead of having to wait months for her appointment, she was able to get it straight away. The specialist then removed the right kidney, and the biopsy result showed that there was aggressive cancer, so she had to have another surgery to remove the obstructed ureter. Due to COVID, many surgeries were postponed, and the hospital only did morning surgeries. But God had a plan for her, and her specialist, who was worried that the cancer might spread, was able to make a special request to slot her in for an afternoon surgery. So instead of having to wait until October or November this year, she was able to have the surgery in August, which is amazing for a public hospital patient. Even the hospital staff called her a VIP patient because no one else was given the same exception. And an important thing to note is that when you see my mum, you would have no idea what she's been through. She always looks happy and healthy, and all her friends and even the nurses at the hospital comment on it. And the most important thing to remember is that just as God has always been there for my mum, He can also do the same for you, as we are all His creation. Life can be tough, but I can say from personal experience that having God in your life makes a big difference for mental health and resilience. If you don't know much about God or the Christian faith, I would definitely recommend that you find out more. And one easy way is to sign up for a free course that Third Space will run in the next few weeks, which will be explained at the end of this event. If you have never prayed before, I encourage you to try. God is always ready to listen and genuinely cares about you. You have nothing to lose, but you have everything to gain.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Maddie, and I'm going to be doing the Q&A with Sam today. So as I said, my name is Maddie, and I am a part of the Christian group at Arup. And if you don't know Arup, it is an engineering consultancy firm. So Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really loved your talk, and it's just given me a lot of insight into what I can be doing better with mental health and resilience. Now, first question, this is actually a question that I'm very curious about. So do you really wax your nose?
Not yet, but like I said, now it's become a thing. It's one of many things we have to do now.
Good, good. Yeah, don't feel like you need to though. I think take that pressure off.
Be kinder to myself. I don't have to be perfect.
Exactly. But a serious question now. One from our Q&A. Now, everyone also, please feel free to keep sending in your questions if you have anything for Sam. The link is just in the chat. So go ahead and ask some questions. Now, first question. In what way does Christianity provide a unique view to resilience and mental health, in contrast to what is offered by the best of medical resources? So counselor, psychologist, this sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. So studies after studies, both Christian, non-Christian studies, do show that religion is of incredible benefit when it comes to mental health and resilience. And one of the takeaways then we can have then is, well, any religion works because all religions are the same. They give you a faith, they give you a worldview. But I say to say all religions are the same is like to say all Asians look the same. Something you can get away with at first, because let's face it, they do all look the same superficially. But once you have a few Asian friends, you realize, wow, they're also different from each other. And religions are the same. On the surface level, okay, they all have a faith, they believe in a supernatural God. But once we get to know the religions, we realize, they're very individual, and they're very different. So what can the Christian God offer, which is unique and special? I think the Christian faith is the one that says God is loving and powerful and He cares. And I know that other faiths, you have a powerful God, but this God is impersonal and doesn't care. Or maybe this God is very personal and cares, but He's not very powerful. And I'll give you another example, and I'm being very sensitive here because my grandparents were originally Buddhists, and so I'm going to talk about the Eastern faiths, especially Buddhism, where to navigate suffering, we're taught it's an illusion. Like enlightenment is to remove yourself and just see there's no such thing as suffering. It's in your mind. Get over it. And then to see Buddha himself, his solution is teaching. So you're meant to learn teachings. And Buddha himself is detached and removed. And he's actually very well fed. He's very well nourished. Whereas
Yes,
the Christian worldview is the opposite. Now, suffering is real. Suffering sucks. It's so bad that Jesus himself, the Son of God, became one of us. And rather than remove himself from our suffering, came to be in our suffering and suffered alongside of us. And the image of Christianity is Jesus, gaunt, hanging on a cross, because he wants to be part of our suffering. It's so real. He wants to take part in it. But of course, it doesn't end there. There's a chapter to come where Jesus rose from the dead. And we know there's another chapter where Jesus will remove suffering. So suffering matters so much to Jesus. He suffered alongside and he gave us a very real solution out of it.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So you were just saying that, yeah, Christianity is something quite unique to other religions, as Jesus suffered. And yeah, he can relate with us in that suffering. And yeah, how is that kind of different in looking at, I guess, like, yeah, medical resources? So like, is it okay to seek professional help? Or should we just have a faith and, that'll solve it?
Oh, totally. Listen, I am a medical doctor myself. I work 1 or 2 days a week as a doctor. I'm a man of the sciences, evidence-based belief. So I'm very much of that. And I think that's how God works, through wisdom, through the sciences, through human learning. And so definitely it's both medicine, both the sciences, and also knowing there's more to this world than what I can see and touch. So it's quite a both and approach.
Awesome. Well, this also kind of takes me into another question. Yeah, what are your thoughts about, yeah, taking medication to help with resilience? Can Christians medicate?
Oh, totally. It's like, again, God has given us wisdom, the sciences, human learning to know how to navigate this world. And medicine is a great gift from God. I think, and so an example would be like, we all suffer in this world. Some of us suffer from asthma, some of us from diabetes, some of us from blood pressure, and some of us from mental illness. And then medications we take for asthma, for diabetes, for blood pressure, and the medications we can also take for mental illness. So I think it definitely is a both and approach. We need doctors, sociologists, psychologists. So I'll just to answer again, I take something like asthma. There's multiple causes of it. So we have to treat it at multiple levels. It's not just biological, it's also environmental. So there are many factors involved, and same with mental health. It's not just one thing that causes breakdowns. There are many things, and there are many things we can do then to help our mental health.
Definitely. So yeah, just the idea of, we take medication for our physical illnesses. Why should mental illnesses be any different? Yeah, and Jesus knows that. And
yeah, and we have sports psychologists, for playing sport. And that's a very physical game as well. And so again, psychologists, sociologists, therapy, they all help.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, so another question. So you said to trust Jesus, but how does that help us with the busyness and hectic workload? Doesn't it take more time to include this in our schedules?
I think it gives us the framework that relax, it's okay, it's all under control. There's a bigger picture, and we can't micromanage everything. I think, again, we only have 3 choices in life. Choice number 1, there is no God behind this universe, so everything's out of control. There's no one behind the driver's seat. Choice number 2, there is no God. I have to be the one in control of everything, both at macro and micro level. Number 3, no, there's a God who has everything under control. Just be responsible for what we need to control. So the example I give are my kids. Every parent feels like they're underperforming, they're not doing enough, and somehow their kids are still falling behind. But if we can just relax and say, no, it's okay that my kids aren't doing Chinese. It's okay they're not doing the piano, because people have told me, I'm sorry, your kids are learning the clarinet. That's not a real instrument. They do need to know the piano because that's two clefs, two hands. But I can say, no, relax. What is the major goal in life? It's to know Jesus, to love Jesus, to know I'm always valuable. And every day is a day where Jesus has a project with me, where he's making me more and more like Jesus. I get to be part of Team Jesus. I'm part of his bigger story for me. And I know why I'm here and where I'm going. And so I don't have to macro or micro control everything because I know my vision, my design, my purpose.
Yeah, I guess just being able to know that if God is in control, you don't need to have absolutely everything perfect. It is beyond you. You don't need to be in control of everything. Yeah.
And the counter story, the opposite story is where we're told you can be perfect. You can do anything you want as long as you believe and try hard enough. And of course, none of us are perfect. So then we end up blaming ourselves. We fall short. There's shame and there's guilt.
Yeah. When we don't reach our own expectations and other people's expectations. Yeah. Another question that this might be a bit of a difficult one to answer, but let's see how we go. How can we believe that a loving God is watching over us and that he is in control when there is so much suffering around us?
Yeah, that's right. So again, our choices are, you know what, you're right. There is no loving God. Stuff just happens, get over it. Or, you know what, you're right. There is no loving God. In fact, this stuff isn't evil. It isn't suffering. It's just the random ebb and flow of the universe. Or, you know what, the fact that I sense something's not right must mean I have a standard of right, a loving, right God. And that's how I know things aren't right. But if there is a loving, right God, I've just got to trust there's a loving, right reason. The example I give is every parent goes through this when you hand your kid over when they're a baby to a doctor to get their measles vaccination, and that look of horror on your child's face when the doctor puts the needle into them and your kid looks at you, what are you doing? Why is this pain in my body? But then it only lasts a short time. Your kid looks at you, just thinks, you know what? You've got a good track record. I think I can trust you on this. I don't understand the pain I'm going through, but there must be a reason why you've let this happen in my life.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, and I think we just have time for one more question. And this person said, thanks for this talk, Sam. It's great to hear what we can do to be more resilient. What can we do to support others around us to be more resilient?
Wow. I think just letting people know we are there with them. They are not suffering alone. And even saying, hey, my wife and kids, well, for me, I say my wife and kids, we pray for our friends every night. Would it be okay if we prayed for you? So not trying to offer solutions, because that's just too simple, too naive, but just being with someone and also showing that, there's a God who loves you and cares for you. And can we pray to this God as well? Which is interesting because it's the same way we manage suffering in our own lives. The Bible says God never promises that we're not going to have suffering. In fact, if anything, this is a world where we don't look for suffering. Suffering will find us. But God says, I will be there with you. So he suffers with us. And that's what we can do with our friends as well. Say, hey, I will suffer with you. I can't take away the suffering, but I'll be there with you.
Thanks, Sam.